to Sound Off on 96.7 The Eagle, LaPorte County's original social media. Sound Off is a public interest forum that encourages your voice to be heard on the topics and issues impacting our local communities. For the next 30 minutes, we invite you to be part of the conversation by calling 219-362-0522. And you can now text your questions to the Liquor Vault on-air line or by email to soundoff@967theeagle.com. This is a topic-based program, and we ask that you keep your comments brief, concise, and related to the topic being discussed. The views expressed on Sound Off are those of the host or callers and do not represent the opinion of 96.7 The Eagle, Spoon River Media LLC, or the sponsors. The Liquor Vault on-air line is now open for your calls or texts at 219-362-0522. This is Sound Off on 96.7 The Eagle.
Hello, friends. Welcome to Sound Off today. It's Monday, January 31st, the final day of January. We are 1/12 through this year already, 2022. Glad to have you with us. I want to remind you, for those of you that are wanting to maybe run for office coming up, this doesn't impact school board. School board elections are the filing deadline is later in the year. This summer, I think in July. But if you're wanting to run for something else, and I hope you do, again, don't let the fear of maybe losing out or maybe the fear of, what would you do and things like that stop you. Run for an office. Maybe it's trustee or a trustee board or something like that. Or maybe it's a council spot. But you have until the end of this week to file. And if you have any questions about that, you can contact the county clerk's office, and they'd be happy to help you with any of that information that you might need. So at the end of this week, we will have most of a kind of clarity of who's running for a lot of our local offices. Now, today we'll have a conversation about the recently passed Indiana House Bill 1134. It's legislation that provides more regulation of local schools, including creating mandatory curriculum materials advisory committees. That just flows off the tongue for each school district. It also regulates how educators teach about race, history, and social emotional learning. The bill is now in the Indiana State Senate. If you remember, just a couple weeks ago, we had State Senator Mike Pahachik on the show, and there was a similar bill in the Senate that got canceled because of remarkably, through a hearing, somebody said that, one of the senators essentially alluded to being impartial on Nazism. He ended up coming back on that, but anyway, that bill then just died because you really can't come back from being impartial on Nazism. So it is now a House bill, and it is in the Senate. Senator Mike Pahachik said he wasn't going to support the state Senate bill the way it was. We'll see how he's going to support, or if he will support, this House bill. But I want to get your thoughts on this bill. Again, it's House Bill 1134. Let us know. Give us a call. Give me a text. The number is 219-362-0522. You're welcome to call me or text me. That's the Liquor Vault on-air line, 219-362-0522. A little bit about this bill again. It essentially will impact how teachers teach, right? It's regulating what teachers can and cannot say. And it gives, as legislators would argue, it gives parents more control over what their children will hear in the classroom. So if you don't like what your child is being taught in a class, you can opt them out of that. If you don't perhaps want them to learn about other different types of concepts or things like that, you have an avenue to get them out of the classroom. But it does a lot of other things that I think are problematic for a lot of our educators. What I keep on hearing from our educators is it essentially says that you don't trust them. You don't trust that they're teaching well. You don't trust that they can be unbiased in the classroom. And you don't trust that, again, that they're going to do their job well. And that these laws are being put forth by legislators that often, or voted on rather, by legislators that often don't have the requisite education experience and things like that. And so there's a lot of education people, a lot of educators, a lot of school administrators that are not happy with this bill. So we'd love to hear from you. House Bill 1134, Indiana House Bill 1134. It is now in the Senate. It passed the House. What do you think about that? The Liquor Vault on-air line is 219-362-0522. We've got a couple texts I'll read here for... how unfortunate that teachers will all be busy teaching children during this time, so their perspective can only be representative through text and comments, unable to rebut comments made by others. I am hopeful that this will at least make people more aware of the contents of this harmful bill. Countless teachers will be looking to leave if this passes. This is not speculation, as many teachers have voiced this. Our area stands to lose many, particularly because both Michigan and Illinois are relatively easy commutes. Please think about the number and quality of teachers this will leave for our children if you don't do what you can to convince your state senator to vote no and to actively fight this bill. Here's another comment through our text line. Again, that number is 219-362-0522. Thanks for covering this topic. I know that both sides are passionate, and in my experience, I can understand where both are coming from. It's a complex issue, but I'd simply like to say this. If we can't talk about divisive concepts in school, how are young people going to learn the discipline of civil discourse? At our school, we try to model that it's possible to be exposed to vastly differing points of view and engage respectfully in messy dialogue. This bill seems like a step toward precluding that from happening, and that seems like a shame. So we're getting your opinions and thoughts on House Bill 1134. That's in the Indiana Senate now. It passed the it passed the House, Indiana House. Locally, Representative Pat Boyd voted against it, and Representative Jim Prussell voted for it. Let's get a couple points on this bill for HB 1134 that you might want to think about. This is some criticism from some of the education organizations in the state. So a couple of the criticisms are it's a solution in search of a problem. Teachers and schools are already doing the things required by this bill. It talks about finding curriculum. You can already have access to your curriculum for your students. You can already get all of that. It essentially gives, it makes it seem like there's a problem where there's not. Another one is it excludes LGBTQ from the list of protected classes. So you can theoretically, people are protected by their religion. People can be protected by their gender. People can protect, but they're not protected by their sexual orientation based on this bill. HB 1134 opens the doors for the banning of books in school libraries. That was the interesting thing for me is, we look back at some of the books from, yesteryear, some of the books that are, pretty popular, and there are some controversial things in there. Some things that probably maybe wouldn't be written today, but again, they're important books, and they're books that students have been reading for years and years. And so, are we going to ban those books because people are uncomfortable by them? It allows students to opt out of subject matter if they don't agree with the factual information presented, which will lead to inconsistent education across the state. Opens teachers and schools up to frivolous lawsuits, which will create fear about teaching certain subjects. That's one thing it does, is if a teacher is found in non-compliance to some of these things, it will allow those teachers, to either have their teaching license pulled, or it'll allow the parents, I think, up to $1,000 plus legal costs to sue the school district, which again, I don't think our school districts are swimming in money right now. So, and even if it's a bad lawsuit, you still have to pay lawyers. That's my experience. Lawyers still want paid even if it's a bad lawsuit. It limits the ability of teachers to teach accurate history and to have classroom conversations around student connections and feelings due to risk of repercussions. It drastically increases the workload for teachers through unrealistic mandates to share lessons with members of the public. Schools will suffer financial burden to manage mandates, taking resources away from classrooms and student instructions because they'll have to create a whole new budget just for parents that get upset and sue the school district just because they don't like what their son or daughter is being taught. It'll exacerbate the teacher shortage that already exists, especially during the ongoing pandemic. That's one of the things that, again, I'm not sure our legislators are really thinking through. Indiana has a terrible teacher shortage. I mean, just terrible. And the larger our classrooms become, the harder it is for teachers to effectively teach. But we're going to have larger classrooms if we don't get more teachers teaching. And so it could do that as well. So we're talking about House Bill 1134, a very controversial education bill right now that's going to the Senate after passing the House. If you've got an opinion on this, the Liquor Vault on-air line is 219-362-0522. You can call me or text me. I'd love to hear from you. Let's get to a caller. Hey, thanks so much for listening to the show. Hope you had a good weekend. What's your thoughts on House Bill 1134?
You too as well. I hope you had a great weekend.
Thank you, bub.
Hey, do you have kids that go to school in LaPorte here?
I do. 3 of them.
Okay, great. I have 4 girls that go to school, and you know what? My kids are bullied often, because they disagree with LGBTQ issues. Those things are pushed on my kids constantly by teachers. They hang flags in their classes, which they're not even legally supposed to do that. So what this bill is doing is giving parents saying, hey, look, you're not teaching my kids these alternate lifestyle things that we want to promote that are not healthy, that you as a pastor should agree they're not healthy. These things are not healthy for kids. They're not healthy for relationships. They're not healthy for marriages. And so what these things, and believe me, there's plenty of books like Tom Sawyer and lots of books that have been banned by the left. What some of the books we're talking about is Jimmy thinks he's a girl and Miley thinks she's a boy. All these different transgender things that most regular Americans don't want their kids reading. And the other aspect is the idea that the parents do have 100% of say-so of what their kids learn. And if you ask many teachers throughout the country, they'll tell you that's not true. These aren't my opinions. These are facts. Anyone can look these up on the internet. These things are done all over the place. And bear in mind, much of our curriculum, they'll say it comes from the West. This was told by a Hanley principal. This was told by Hanley teachers. Well, it comes from the West. You know what West is? California. We don't want that stuff taught here. Long math, Common Core. Oh, it's not being taught here. Yes, it is. Your kids are learning Common Core because my kids are homeschooled, 2 of them now. The other 2 choose to go to school. And I saw the math these guys were learning. It's absolutely ludicrous. So I hope it passes. I hope you have a good day, sir.
All right.
Thank you for the time.
Thanks so much. Have a good day. Thanks for calling. Thanks for listening to the show. Let's get to another caller. Hey, you're on Sound Off. Thanks so much for listening to the show. Thanks for calling. What's your thoughts on this bill?
You got me?
Yeah, it's you, bud. Welcome.
It seems like this is being pushed by states that are controlled by Republicans, as well as the COVID vaccine issues. Over the weekend, there was a report out of Tennessee that they want to quit teaching about the Holocaust. Well, now you could deny the Holocaust existed. Common rational people know that it did. So what service are we doing to the kids if we don't educate them about this stuff?
Yeah, it is a problem. I actually have met someone that didn't believe that the Holocaust existed in light of so much data, and such a weird view. And so you're right. Who gets to determine that? Well, you would hope then. What would happen if you have curriculum committees in a school district that all agree on something that clearly isn't true? I'm not sure what would happen there. Now, here's what's interesting about some of these curriculum committees, that they really have no authority. So I don't know what's the purpose of them, quite frankly, because they have to meet, they have to have public meetings, but the school boards or the governmental agencies that regulate them, which will be their school boards, don't have to actually listen to them. So I'm not sure what's the purpose of them, other than creating more bureaucracy. So,
well, that's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
And I don't know where the current government and history classes are today. Does that mean if we want to deny the Holocaust, then we deny the First and Second World Wars? Do we deny Korea? Do we deny Vietnam?
Yeah, I would think not, and I would hope not. But again, that's the nice thing about having standardized what you learn, and why the Department of Education is so important. So, hey, thanks so much for calling. We'll get to another caller before break. Hey, thanks. You're listening to Sound Off. Thanks so much for calling. Thanks for listening to the show. What's your thoughts on this House bill?
Well, there's two or three different kind of sides on this. If you got greedy parents and greedy lawyers that want to file frivolous lawsuits about nothing, that's time for the judges to start smacking that stuff down. And kids should be educated, but not indoctrinated. You see what happened out there in Loudoun, Virginia, with that school board. You need to educate these kids. History did happen. Sometimes it's not fun. Sometimes it's not pleasant, but it happened. We need our kids educated. You get them ready for life's skills after they get out of high school. You don't teach them that, I have to agree with first of all, the LGBTQ, that's got no reason to be taught in school whatsoever. That's like critical race theory. Why would you teach them that all white people are racist because they're white? They educate, not indoctrinate. And then it goes even further when you get kids into college. I had one daughter went to college, and some of the things they tried to teach her about economics and just sociological things that are happening in life made no sense to her at all, because she knew for a fact they were not accurate. But her teacher, her professor, so to speak, continued to press these issues. And as far as the school boards, you had a school board here a couple years ago that banded together, two ladies who didn't think their kids were getting enough playing time on the basketball court, banded together to have a coach fired. So, I mean, come on now, folks. There are kids. We should have a say of what they're taught and whether or not we want them indoctrinated into the ways of the teacher. But not all teachers teach. Some of them are. I remember some great, wonderful teachers, and I also remember some terrible teachers we had in school. So that needs to be addressed too. Maybe this is just going to be hold the teachers and school boards accountable to what the parents think they should be taught. Just my thoughts. Thank you.
Thanks so much. You know, the what I always hear though in the elections is that, you know, the way to keep a school board or schools accountable is every 4 years when there's a school board election, or every 2 years, really, because you don't have all of them replaced at the same time. And so if you don't like that, you replace your school board. And, you know, again, if you don't like your school board after 2 years, you vote them out, kind of things. And so, you know, it's an interesting thing. You know, I tend to favor my kids being around different ideas and being, you know, I don't want them to live in such a siloed worldview that they don't know what other people believe, even if our family believes differently, because it's good to know what other people believed. So again, I think teachers have a responsibility to introduce ideas, though certainly not mandate that anybody believe all of the things that they might believe. So we're going to take a break. If you've got an opinion on House Bill 1134, this education bill, you're welcome to call or text me, 219-362-0522. You're also welcome to email me at soundoff@967theeagle.com. I'd love to hear from you today, and we could talk a little bit more about this bill in the next half hour or so. But stay where you're at and keep listening to 96.7 The Eagle.
Ben Conowitz here, LaPorte Seamless Gutter, 219-362-9972. You know, fall is here, and that means leaves and debris for your gutter system. We've got 3 separate types of gutter guard for your home. Leaves and debris come in all shapes and sizes. We don't need a one-size-fits-all for your gutter. Give us a call today for a free estimate at 219-362-9972, or you can visit us on the web, www.lpseamless.com.
It's a brand new year, and that means it's time to head someplace different. And that place is Michigan City Kia. Come check out our new 2022 Kia lineup, including sedans, SUVs, crossovers, hybrids, and electric models. From gas sippers to family haulers and everything in between, there's a Kia vehicle to fit every budget and lifestyle. Come in for a test drive and check out Michigan City Kia today. Or visit MichiganCityKia.com, now part of the Bob Licurcio Auto Group.
You don't like buying a car this way.
In honor of all those we've lost to cancer and those still fighting and thriving, like basketball analyst and cancer champion Dick Vitale.
I want to beat cancer. I'm going to beat it. That's no doubt in my mind. I'm going to win this battle.
Defeating cancer will take all of us. Join our team to help fund game-changing research that saves lives. At the V Foundation, V is for victory over cancer. V is for victory over the odds. V is for victory over health disparities, victory over setbacks, victory over the unknown. V is for victory over giving up.
Don't give up. Don't ever give up.
Join the V Foundation team. and help save lives.
Cancer can take away all my physical abilities. It cannot touch my mind, it cannot touch my heart, and it cannot touch my soul.
Join our team in the fight against cancer at the.org.
Your opinion matters. We invite you to share it by calling or texting the Liquor Vault on-air line at 362-0522. That's 362-0522. Now, back to Sound Off on 96.7 The Eagle.
Welcome back, friends. Glad to have you on today's episode of Sound Off. We're having a conversation about the recently passed Indiana House Bill 1134. It's legislation that provides more regulation of local schools, including creating mandatory Curricular Materials Advisory Committees. I'm going to call those CMACs. I don't know if that's what everyone else is calling them, but I'm going to create a thing here for each school district. It also regulates how educators teach about race, history, and social emotional learning. You know, I don't get why people don't like social emotional learning. I've learned a lot about it. I've actually been on committees here at LaPorte Community School Corporation about social emotional learning. And sometimes we educate the kids and we help them even when they're having bad days. And teaching your student or educators and the people involved that kids are complex, emotional beings isn't a bad thing. The bill is now in the Indiana Senate. If it passes the Indiana Senate, then it'll go to the governor's office where he can either sign it or veto it. But the problem with the governor right now is there is a supermajority, so if he vetoes something, it's still likely going to pass. So what are your thoughts on this bill? Let us know. You can call me. You can text me, 219-362-0522. And I'd love to hear from you. I got a couple comments that have come in here. Those who can teach, or those who can teach, those who can't pass laws about teaching. I was uncomfortable learning about the Holocaust. Being uncomfortable shouldn't be a factor regarding whether something is being taught well. That's not a bad idea. I don't know anybody that can be taught about the Holocaust and not be comfortable. All right, let's get to a couple more callers. Thanks so much for listening to the show. Thanks for calling. What's your thoughts on this House bill?
I'm for it. I have seen and heard where they teach little kids, preschoolers, that if the white kids. Okay, yeah.
So again, we don't say that here on this station. We have a owner of these stations that gets to choose what is said and what isn't, and how it's said and how it's talked about, and we don't talk about our black neighbors in that way. So let's get to another caller. Thanks so much for calling the show. Thanks for listening. What's your thoughts on House Bill 1134?
Hello, Nate.
Hey, how are you, bud?
Good. I'm for the bill, and I also wonder why we can't get our school board meetings back on Elko TV. And if you could get a school board president or member on your show.
Sure. I have reached out to school board member here in LaPorte to get on the show. We're working out the time and when they can come on. I'll tell you with Elko, people might not know this. Governments and entities that are on there have to pay to be on there. It is a service, and so, for instance, the city of LaPorte now pays a different company to do their online or to do their meetings, and not Elko. And so, the school system probably just doesn't pay or want to pay Access LaPorte to be on there. You can now go to their YouTube channel and watch it, which is what I do. We're talking about House Bill 1134. If you've got an opinion on this, the Liquor Vault on-air line is 219-362-0522. You're welcome to call me or text me. Again, that number is 219-362-0522. I'd love to hear from you today. A couple more comments here. What is happening to America when we have a whole party in favor of censorship? It's no longer just private businesses like Twitter or Facebook, but now Republicans want to censor educators and schools from teaching things they just don't like. All right, let's get to another caller. Hey, thanks for listening to the show. Thanks for calling. What's your thoughts on this House bill? Oh, lost you. Sorry. We're talking about House Bill 1134. It is authored by Representative Anthony Cook, co-authored by J.D. Prescott and Chuck Goodrich, sponsored by Senator Linda Rogers. And we're talking about, again, what your thoughts are of this bill. Now, I know there are many educators that did not like this bill or do not like this bill, but honestly, they can't call right now because they're teaching. So we're talking about it's legislation that provides more regulation of local schools. It includes creating mandatory curriculum materials advisory committees. So a school will have to create a committee with some parents, with some teachers and stuff like that, that get to go over their curriculum, which again, though, is given to them by the Department of Education. So the curriculum is set by the state. But it will go over all the other things that maybe a teacher is using in the classroom. And then they get to then make recommendations to the school board. The school board doesn't have to listen to them, though. There's nothing in the bill that says they have to actually abide by their committee recommendation, because it's just an advisory committee. So it just really is another committee that has no authority. So I'm not sure if it really does much good. The bill is now in the Indiana State Senate. What are your thoughts on this? I'd love to hear from you today. 219-362-0522. Give me a call. Shoot me a text. Let's get to another caller. Hey, thanks for calling the show. I hope you had a great weekend. What's your thoughts on House Bill 1134?
Well, there's censorship of some sort in every city, state, country. Groups of citizens get together and decide what they want their kids to be taught, and that's their right. You gave a good example there of censorship when you cut that lady off from saying something, and it may have been something really bad. You can't tell them today because the left side of politics is censoring so many things. You don't even know what consider to be censoring. But that's a good example, and so that's going to happen. So the citizens of Indiana get together and they vote for somebody and they put them in office, and those people want to have some sort of censorship or some sort of structure as to what's going to be taught and how it's going to be taught, then, that's their prerogative, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, so I would say, it's just one of those things that happens in any society. And then you have to look at Google and Yahoo and all the rest of them online that are doing all kind of left-wing censoring and leaning news reports whatever way they want to do it. That's just the way things happen. And
so are you saying you're in favor of censorship, but like everyone's doing it, so you might as well be the one that actually gets the authority to do it?
No, incorrect.
Okay, sorry. I'm just trying to understand what you're saying.
Since the beginning of time, every city, state, country, village, they all have their standards. That's the reason they come together for several different reasons. And when they want to decide what to teach their kids, that's up to them. So they do that.
Yeah. And that's the hard thing is when you have, we've got a school system of over 6,000 students, lots of different parents, lots of different belief systems, lots of different political beliefs, right? So who gets to decide there, right? Well, typically the state decides and it's passed down to the individual schools. And then your school board gets to be the essentially accountable agents in a community school, right? Doesn't that system already work? That's what I don't understand isn't the system working? So I don't know. We're talking about House Bill 1134. What's your thoughts on it? If you've got a comment or an opinion on House Bill 1134, the Liquor Vault on air line is 219-362-0522. You're welcome to call me. You're welcome to text me. You can even send a pigeon my way if you'd like. As long as it gets here in the next 15 minutes, I would love to hear from you. Again, some of the Curricular Material Advisory Committee tasks, according to the bill, and I read this whole bill, and I encourage you to read it. It's 50-some pages. It's not too terribly. It's not the most interesting read you'll ever have. I'm not going to lie to you, but here's some of the things. As used in this chapter, curricular material and the things that they're going to be essentially advising on means any material used for student instruction by a school corporation, including the following: textbooks and other printed materials, audio-visual materials, materials in electric or digital formats, including materials accessible through the internet, so a YouTube video or something like that, library materials, student surveys, and a syllabus. And so the Curricular Material Advisory Committees would be in charge then of going through all of the teachers, all of the stuff that they're using, and going through there and reviewing those things. And then they, according to the law, they would have to have 2 public meetings to hear from parents about the curriculum that their teachers are using. And then the parents would get to push back whether or not they want that curriculum being taught in the school or not. It just creates a huge burden for educators, right? I can tell you this. I've got kids in the LaPorte Schools Corporation. I went to the New Prairie School Corporation. I had teachers that were, I was telling Dennis between the show, I had a teacher, Mr. Colburn, who taught government at New Prairie. Great teacher. I liked him. I think by the time I had him, he was kind of done. But I enjoyed him. He was really persnickety, very angry, so I tend to like those people. Hardcore Republican, thought Jimmy Carter should stick to peanut farming when he was, president, hated Bill Clinton, these kind of things. And we know it. We knew it. But you know what he said? He said, here's the thing, is if you disagree with me, my job for you is to teach you how to disagree, right? To teach you how to get to the point where you can disagree. You can be a Democrat, you can be an independent, but I'm going to tell you, this is what I believe. Tell me where I'm wrong. These kind of things. You know what? I didn't have any problem with it. I knew where he stood. He didn't tell me I was an idiot for believing differently, or if I did believe differently. He just said the task now is to figure out how to think differently if you disagree. So, we want to make sure that teachers like Mr. Colburn can still teach, right? That people like that still have an opportunity to educate, because we'll be missing out on a lot of good educators and a lot of good opportunities for educators to impact the next generation in how to think if we limit so much who can teach and what they have to do to stay in the parameters of what is lawful teaching in Indiana. So we're talking about House Bill 1134. The Liquor Vault on-air line is 219-362-0522. Let's get to one more caller before break. Hey, welcome to the show. Glad to have you today. What's your thoughts on House Bill 1134?
Hi. So earlier you mentioned how teachers can't call in because they're at work. I am a high school student, and I also work in a elementary school for 12 hours a week. Oh. I've always wanted to be a teacher. This fall I'm going to college to become a teacher.
Hey, good for you. Good for you. That's awesome.
But I feel like looking at this, I've always planned to teach, in Indiana, but looking at all the, just the bill in general, I can't see any positives to it. There's a reason there's private schools and homeschooling if you don't want your kids to be taught the general curriculum. And, I'm honestly already considering places I could possibly teach that are close enough to my family in Indiana that are not in the state of Indiana. And as teachers, we should not push our political opinions on the children, but we do not do that right now. We're here to educate them. They need to know what happened to our world and be able to form their own opinions. I would say it's just as cruel to push your opinion on them as parents and not let them be their own person than it would be for a teacher to do that. So, yeah, that's kind of where I stand on it. I don't support the bill.
Hey, thanks so much for calling. I really appreciate it, and good luck to you, okay?
Thanks.
All right, take care. So, yeah, what's interesting about this is there is not rules that go to all of the publicly funded schools, right? So, for instance, you've got school choice right now, and you could take your kids out and you could send them to a Catholic or a Lutheran school or something like that, or a Jewish school or a different type of school, and put your money in there, your tax money that goes to education, if they accept that. But those schools don't have to follow this, right? So you can theoretically then, these private schools that get to take taxpayer funded money don't have to abide by these same rules, which is really interesting because, again, if you shouldn't be able to push religion, or if you shouldn't be able to push political ideology in public schools that are getting public money, then private schools that get public money shouldn't as well, right? I mean, it just seems like it's only fair. Well, we're talking about House Bill 1134. Love to hear what you think about it. 219-362-0522. We're going to take a break and be right back here. Stay warm and keep listening to 96.7 The Eagle.
Car problems often strike at the absolute worst times, but you can rest well knowing that Cannon's Automotive Service is here for you and dedicated to get you back on the road with prompt, efficient, same-day service. The same Cannon's commitment that LaPorte has trusted for over 50 years. Cannon's Automotive Service, now with 2 locations, 710 Tyler Street and 909 Boyd Boulevard.
With Cannon's Automotive, we fix everything.
Come into Bell Tire today you'll get the lowest tire price, period. Get up to $200 off a set of 4 Goodyear tires. You'll also get a guy who will give you free lifetime flat repairs, tire rotations, and alignment checks. Get up to $200 off a set of 4 Goodyear tires. Plus more free services and more out of your tires and more for your money. It's how we make the lowest tire price feel even lower at Bell Tire. See store and belltire.com for details and offer expiration.
Look at all the things I've collected over the years in here, Dave.
Why, Dad?
So you'll have many things to remember me by, and, I'm sure you can use it all someday.
But, Dad, I can't use all these things.
Yeah, but just think, it's all yours someday.
Oh, wow. Thanks, Dad. Is that a bumper I see buried with this stuff?
Oh, hey, yeah, I believe it's your mom's 1976 Pinto. And again, it's going to be yours someday.
Do you have things you don't need or want anymore? Are you tired of seeing things that you thought was a good idea to buy and then turn around and put it away in some corner of your garage? Well, you're in luck. At 96.7 The Eagle, we can help by reading your garage, rummage, estate, or yard sale during Tradio. All you need to do is visit hometownnewsnow.com, click on the Submit tab, and fill out the form, and we'll contact you for the payment. It's that simple. Of course, we do accept debit and credit cards for payment. So listen weekdays at 9:45 for your sale to be read live on 96.7 The Eagle, and check out the listings at hometownnewsnow.com.
Your forecast on 96.7 The Eagle brought to you by Harmon Expert Auto Service. If you're looking for a local and quality auto repair company, then look no further than Harmon Expert Auto with 2 locations in LaPorte, 308 Washington or 111 Brighton Streets. Visit their website at harmonexpertautoservice.com or call 325-0444.
Michiana weather.
A winter storm watch begins at 9 p.m. tomorrow night and continues until 7 p.m. Thursday night. High of 30 this afternoon. From the Weather Center at hometownnewsnow.com, I'm meteorologist Paul Trombley. Right now, 29.
Thank you for tuning in to Sound Off. You can now text or email your questions directly to the studio. Call or text 362-0522 or email your questions to soundoff@967theeagle.com. This is Sound Off.
Welcome back, friends, to our final segment of today's Sound Off. Just so glad to have you with us. We're talking about Indiana House Bill 1134. It's legislation that provides more regulation of local schools, including creating mandatory curricular materials advisory committees for each school district. It also regulates how educators teach about race, history, and social emotional learning, what they can and cannot say. It gives parents the right to potentially bring forth a suit against a teacher if they think that the teacher is pushing too much of their own agenda. The bill is now in the Indiana Senate. What are your thoughts on this bill? I'd love to hear from you. 219-362-0522. Just got about 8 minutes left on the show. And if you've got a comment on this, you're welcome to text me or call me. Again, that number is 219-362-0522. Let's get to a caller. Hey, thanks so much for listening to the show today. Hope you had a great weekend. What's your thoughts on House Bill 1134?
I agree with the previous caller. I think this is going to discourage a lot of people from going into the teaching profession, just like all the rules and stuff they're trying to do with the police. And I mean, and then the people that aren't going to have enough teachers are going to be the first ones complaining that wanted this, that, we don't have a place to send our kids to school, and why aren't the teachers doing this? The teachers have a lot of responsibility now as it is. I know when I was in school, I had several different teachers that exposed me to things that I never would have seen or heard of before, some good, some bad. But that's part of what makes us all individuals and life experiences. And like she said, you have to learn to judge for yourself right from wrong. Mm-hmm. And everybody's opinion of what is right and what is wrong as an adult are what's going to determine, some people think this is wrong or this is right, so we're going to do this. And then 20, 30 years from now, you've got all these lawsuits. How easy is it going to be to control that many people and without having lawsuits all over the place? Because there are always those people that they're just looking for a reason. Mm-hmm. And I just think that's too bad, because you could ruin a person's whole career with one lawsuit. Yeah. And that's not what we want. We want to encourage educators. They're not even paid enough as it is to be with your child all day long and being an influence on them. You should be grateful there's people that want to do that. Yeah. So that's just my opinion on it. And I just hate to see it go the way of the police, where they're being discouraged now because so many rules are having to be made up for individual situations. It's crazy.
Yeah,
Thank you very
thanks
much.
so much. There is this kind of implicit thing in the bill where you kind of treat the teachers or the police and other bills as the villains, right? That there are villains that need more regulation because they're doing all these bad things and harming our children. When you might have a case of one teacher doing bad things, but is that reason to create all this new legislation for this? I don't know. The Indiana State University's By College of Education found that 96.5% of the Indiana school districts that responded to their survey reported teacher shortages. And this is not COVID related necessarily. This is just they can't get enough teachers. Let's get to another caller. Hey, thanks so much for calling. Thanks for listening to the show. What's your thoughts on House Bill 1134?
Hello there.
Hey.
I just I'm not an educator. My wife is an educator. She's a retired educator, and we have obviously have a lot of friends that are teachers and that are in their point in life where they're getting ready to retire. And with COVID, all of those burdens that were on the teachers on what they had to do and how they had to do it, and everybody dictating those terms and conditions, and then you have this bill that Jim Pretzel agrees with for some unknown reason. It just disturbs me that you're going to keep piling on to these teachers, and the entry education pay is around $33,000 a year, and that's with a 4-year college degree. And then you got all your student loans that you got to pay back. You're not going to have teachers pretty soon. And then I guess everybody will be happy. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much for calling. You know, the bill requires teachers to submit a year's worth of lesson plans for approval. And most teachers I know say, you know, part of teaching is having the freedom to say, you know what, tomorrow we're actually going to take this in a different way because maybe the kids responded well to this or they didn't respond well to this and we need to spend more time on this. And I don't know of a teacher that can tell you a year's worth of necessarily curriculum that they plan on, you know, especially with all of the YouTube that they might use or all of the different, you know, things that they found online to use. Some people are just a couple days ahead of themselves. Some people are a day ahead of themselves because they're just trying to stay in the moment for their kids, which I think would add a lot of a burden for a teacher. Let's get to another caller. Hey, thanks so much for calling. What's your thoughts on House Bill 1134?
Hi, Nate. Is that me?
Yeah, it's you, bud.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you checked, is there anything else attached to this bill? You know, a lot of times they attach something to a bill that they try and sneak through.
Yeah.
Have you read it in its entirety?
I did read it in its entirety. Yeah, and there's some things in there. I mean, it is. I will say this: it is primarily education focused, but there is a ton in there because it's not just these. You know, you might think that there should just be a bill for these curricular materials advisory committees and only talk about that. No, there's all kinds of different things in there, including some censorship stuff as well.
See, when you ask people to answer the question. That should be looked into, you know, the sneakiness of it and what they're trying to sneak through that they're not telling the truth about. So I suggest you just cancel out the whole thing and just leave things alone. When I went to school, you were reading, writing, and arithmetic, geography, and history. Things didn't really change much until after the 6th grade, and the teachers seemed to be right on course with teaching what was in a nice little book, you know. Yep. No problem. All this internet stuff and everything else just changed everything. Now people, I don't know. Anyway, thanks, Nate.
Thanks, bud. Thanks for calling. And that's another, you bring up a good point. There is the internet, right? And kids are being around different ideas. It's not that they're being introduced to them in the classroom. They're being introduced to them by the World Wide Web, right? And sometimes it's really helpful to have a person or a group of people to help them go through these ideas, to seek through these ideas, to help journey through these ideas. And that's what teachers can do. Well, you know, if somebody asks that in a classroom, the teachers might be afraid to even approach it because, again, they don't know how a school system will do. Well, I want to thank you so much for listening today. We'll certainly have more conversation about this. I'll reach out to Pat Boy and Jim Pressel to see if they want to come on the show and talk a little bit more about their votes for this HB 1134. You can go back and listen to a previous conversation we had with State Senator Mike Pahacic, who talked about the accompanying kind of Senate bill of this, which he was not in favor of. So I'm not sure. I've not talked to him about HB 1134 and where he stands on that, but I know he had some serious issues with the Senate version of it. So we'll keep on talking about this. Coming up on the show on Friday, we've got the head of the police union here in LaPorte and the head of the fire union to come in and talk a little bit about the lit tax and things like that, and the shortages that police and fire are having, and how much they need some support locally. So I want to thank you so much for listening. Thanks for being a part of the conversation. If ever you miss an episode, you can find the podcast on hometownnewsnow.com. Be good to yourself, be good to others, and keep listening to 96.7 The Eagle.
Thank you for joining us and voicing your opinion on this edition of Sound Off. The views on Sound Off are those of the host or